we're going to get started here. We convened this call to answer a number of questions that have arisen, and every one of you that has a specific individual question, and if you're willing to give your first and last name to our screener, then and as well as your question, we will go over it and we will address each and every one. So I want to start immediately with the numbers, because I've heard a lot of questions about that, and simply let you know that the referendum by the numbers is very simple. We at last check, and I haven't looked today because I've been swamped with stuff, have not yet seen what the Secretary of State's final count is. But I do know, and I know a number of you have asked me how many signatures we ran through the paid or professional petition company, and we received a total of 22,812 signatures from them that we paid for, with a contract that we let for $80,000. And of course, they didn't deliver. It was $2 per signature, and they told us that they were doing very well with it. And in the end, it was extremely difficult for them to get signatures. The volunteers kicked their ass, like big time. And people are saying they can't hear me. Are you guys able to hear? Okay. So 22,812 is what we got out of the 40,000 that we contracted for. And they processed 157,229 volunteer signatures. That was what was processed. I just got this report yesterday. I know a number of you were asking for it, and I'll be glad to make it available to you via email if you send me an email. Okay, it's evidently everybody can hear now, so maybe we're okay. All right, so that was the professional contract. As far as the GoFundMe, we raised $170,842, and that is what was used to pay the $80,000 contract, of which it came to a total of $80,214.38. There is $73,499.68 left in the bank, and that is all in the SB-277 referendum bank account. And the $150,000, I know a lot of people have asked a million questions about this. That check was never deposited in the SB-277 referendum account and has since been returned. That money has been returned and is not subject to reporting. And that's it. I'm not going to disclose the name of the donor because I had an agreement with her. I also had an agreement with her that if it looked like we were not going to be able to utilize her money in the way that we had envisioned, that I would return it. And that is exactly what I did. And it was not an easy decision because it was insanely hard to get that money. But be that as it may, that's where we are by the numbers. Also, there were some reports out there about a couple of foreign donations. We did get a couple of foreign donations through the GoFundMe, and we are currently in the process of refunding those. And so I wanted to just put that out there. Heather, did you want to say anything before we take questions?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Okay, so we will go right to the phones and take your questions. Hi, Tessa, you have a question. Tessa Parrish.
Yes, I do. The question is, if on Saturday, Fresno, the petitions were in Fresno, why didn't Lauren FedEx them and make them there on time instead of Jen that had all the other duties and wasn't able to get them on time.
Yeah, Lauren didn't have anything to do with the actual work of the referendum. She ran the campaign. So she controlled, and as many of you have seen, she completely controls the website and the Facebook page. She took the Facebook page down. She admitted on the website last night that she unpublished our Facebook page, which, by the way, is a big part of the reason it's been so hard to communicate with everybody, because previously we could put up a simple post and everybody could see it, and it took all the confusion out of it. I can't speak for her or any of her actions, but she had nothing to do with that. What happened is... Well, let me finish.
It just didn't make sense that if she was there. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, she wasn't. I met her in Fresno. I picked up the last bit of mail that had come in. And there were a bunch of petitions that came in by mail. We were in the process of sorting them. She hadn't sorted them. So we're sitting there in a parking lot, and I'm already late to leave to Sacramento. So I just said, hey, just throw them in the box. I'm taking them up there. I also had petitions from all over the state with me. I took those petitions to Jen Colleen's house, where she spent the better part of 6 hours sorting them and organizing them and going through them, including all the mail, all the other petitions, sorting them into boxes and doing everything that needed to be done. And by the way, Jen Colleen is on this call. I'm going to bring her in if there's anything she wanted to add. But she was overwhelmed and basically she went out and Jen, if you want to pick it up from there, you're on.
Tim, I have not been able to hear the conversation, and I just got on about 5 seconds ago, and I wasn't able to load the website.
The question is, why did you have to take stuff to FedEx instead of Lauren? I explained the Lauren part, and I also explained that I was late getting to your house and that you sorted through all this extra stuff that I brought you, and then you went off to make deliveries, and that was where I left it.
Okay. All right. So who are we on with? Can I ask who we're on with?
This is Tessa Parrish.
Sure, this is Tessa. Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, Tessa. Hi, Tessa.
Hi, Tessa. Okay. Hi, Jen.
So, first of all, I'm just a volunteer. I'm just a mom. I'm just a volunteer. I don't know what happened in that last week, but I've worked with Tim as the statewide church coordinator. He brought me on in mid-August after we met at a Nation of Islam event in Oakland. And he asked me to come on and work as the church outreach coordinator, which I accepted. And then when we were kind of nearing the end of the referendum, everything switched gears. Church work was winding down. Sundays were coming to an end. And I started working with some of the other girls on the state leadership team, doing some outreach efforts for fundraising. So we started, emailing and calling chiropractors and trying to open up those channels. So my getting involved in the distribution was kind of by default, because I don't know what was going on in Heather's personal life, but she had to step back for a minute to take care of whatever her business is. And there wasn't a real plan in place for distribution. And I got a little panicked about that and kind of offered to take some of that responsibility on.
I want to comment here. Because the plan for distribution was that we had a professional company that was going to collate and distribute for us. And that was what I proposed. That was what I felt was best. There was a lot of feedback that people wanted to deliver themselves. And so what then ensued was a lot of logistical figuring out at the end of the line, because it went from having a one-stop shop where they were going to worry about timelines and FedEx and collating and all of that to an inordinate amount of statewide coordination in a very short period of time.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather, for clarifying that. That's very true. So Heather had announced on an RC call that the professional company would do the distribution. And what happened on that call is a lot of the RCs got upset about that and had questions. And then Heather had left town, and I was communicating with Tim that week about, hey, the RCs are understandably upset about this issue, and, you need to have a conversation with them, and we need to approach that distribution plan, and they need to have a say. And it was my personal opinion that RCs deserve to have a role in that. And even if we had the professional companies, that the RCs deserve to be there with them to make sure that their work was turned in. And so we hosted an RC call, and, it was kind of decided on that call that our RCs would have a role. And so I stepped into the role of communicating with every RC and basically finding out who was available on Monday, and if who wasn't available, who did they have to go in their place. And that was kind of how I got involved in it. And our original plan was that Tim and I and the other two people who were going to be driving distribution routes would meet at the company on Saturday morning and basically load up the boxes and be on our way and be on the road by noon. But that did not happen because Tim came into town late for no reason that I think is nefarious, other than he was exhausted and he needed to sleep somewhere. And he stopped in Fresno to pick up whatever was there. And what was there was a bunch of mail that I didn't anticipate having to go through. And so we kind of turned my garage into a shop, and we opened up all the mail. And throughout the whole day, I had people from the Sacramento area coming and dropping off petitions that needed to be distributed to all over the state and that they had been collecting at local events. And my house turned into an assembly line, and I love these people and I'm grateful for them, but it slowed the work down on Saturday. And I was super overwhelmed. I was, at more than one point in that day, my husband, asked me if I was okay and told me to go take a nap because I was overwhelmed and I was stressed out. And we didn't get through that process until about 6:30. And we did not want to mail in the mail-in counties before we had gotten through all that mail, because there are petitions in there that need to go in those packages to FedEx. And we wrapped up at like 6:30 at night, and I came inside and sat down with my husband and just had a minute. And then I started calling all of the people who I was supposed to deliver to on Saturday, saying there was no way I was going to get on the road. I mean, I had 9 hours of driving in front of me. And asking them if I could come on Sunday, which they said yes. And by the time I got through that process, FedEx was closed, and I completely effed that up. I mean, it's not anyone's fault but mine. I was exhausted. I wasn't thinking about all the details, and I knew FedEx was open on Sunday. My husband owns a business, so we use FedEx 7 days a week pretty regularly. And we got on the road Sunday morning before business hours were open, and we thought, okay, at our first stop, we'll just run into the FedEx. I didn't find a FedEx on my map app at our first stop, so our second stop was in Chico, and we used the FedEx there. And I paid for priority overnight service. I have all the receipts. Some of them made them on time, like Sutter County made it on time. That was a mail-in. And sadly, most of them didn't. And I'm not happy about it. I don't feel good about it. There were a lot of people who worked for those signatures. I know that. I worked very hard for the ones I got, and so I know the blood, sweat, and tears that go into that. It was, I've never done anything like this before. I came into it at the last minute, really not knowing what I was doing and trying my hardest, and I messed it up.
Well, Jen, I was there, and you did an insane amount of work that day, and it was exhausting. And bottom line is, there was no intent. There was no malintent whatsoever. I mean, you were killing it with everything. You had people taking stuff all over the place. You loaded me up with everything once we had it all sorted and organized, and I took off about the same time you did for Southern California. Basically driving almost 1,000 miles in a single day, making deliveries all the way down the coast. So anyway, thank you for your incredible dedication. You picked up when Heather was not able to be there. She was, dealing with some very severe issues that, we don't need to go into any of that business. But, all of us have really suffered and struggled and tried to and given blood, sweat, and tears for this. So I want to thank you. All right.
Yeah. I just want to comment one more on that, Jen. I think it's very clear that FedEx pretty bad in my mind. So I don't want you to take the fall for planning on a business doing what they said they were going to do. You did not screw up. FedEx failed. And again, to Tim's point, no malintent. That's the bottom line. But that's not on you. That's on them.
Well, I appreciate that, Tessa. I appreciate that. But it is also true that I could have vetted that process better. And, the bottom line is I didn't. And
you were making the process up on the go. Tessa, do you want to finish if you have a finished question, because we got to move on, but go on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. But I listen, I had a bunch of people, and at the last minute, we had the same thing. A lot more came in. I was a drop-off point. I just put my girls to work and said, here, we're sorting them all out together. My question was more of like, if you guys were really underhanded, why couldn't Lauren take them if she was there? Then, of course, she's not on the line, so you can't.
Lauren was never part of the volunteer operation. She was a completely separate entity in Fresno.
I know, but if it's an emergency and at the last minute, we pulled everybody together. I was asking why it didn't happen, but of course, you answered my question that she's not
she's
there to
also in
answer that
Fresno,
question.
and this happened in Sacramento. So, okay, thank you, Tessa.
I'm sorry, can I speak to that?
Quickly.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so Lauren would not have been able to have, people are asking me, why didn't Lauren mail them in? Lauren would not have been able to do that because she didn't have all of them. They were coming out of the petition company in Sacramento. So she had whatever may have come in through the mail and, if she had anything else in her house, but she would not have had what was coming out of Sacramento. So she didn't even have the ability to do the mail at that point.
Well, she's 3 hours away. So, all right, I'm gonna bring on another caller. We've got Summer Boger, who has been waiting a while. With a question. And by the way, just so you know, there's over 14,000 people who are monitoring this call or trying to, and they've overloaded our system. So sorry. Some people are going to be able to hear and others won't. All right. Hey, Summer, how are you?
Hi, Tim. I am excellent. I just want to thank Jen and you and all of the people that have put in their blood, sweat, and tears for this. I just think that you've all done an amazing job. Yes, there's been hiccups along the way and drama, and you have all taken it on, and I just commend you for that.
Well, thank you.
My question is how do we move forward? And then the one thing that I'm still really concerned about is knowing how much you care about parental rights. How are we going to move forward on protecting parental rights against this bill when we see things like in Orange County, they're calling into the education department, the health department to put court orders on people if they're not complying with their IEPs or their special education programs by having their kids 100% mandated. How are we going to deal with these kind of issues?
Summer, the one thing that has happened out of this whole thing is a whole lot of people have come together, people who didn't know each other. And I believe that we now have a force. We have people who are connected in different areas, and they can gather together and protest, and they can, bring legal action. They can bring attention to it through the media and things like that. But I know Heather would probably want to weigh in on this too. It's very near and dear to her heart.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And everybody listening, I want to share who Summer is. She's an activist here in San Diego County, and she herself got nearly 1,000 signatures for this referendum. So anybody who's listening, this is how amazing Summer Boger is. Summer, I think this is a hard question because we don't have a concrete answer. But now this force is united, and it's still gaining momentum. So even though the referendum has completed, the amount of people that are still asking questions and asking what they can do is continuing to grow. We got into churches, which we were not able to do before very well, as you yourself know. So this is just going to get bigger and better while the man and the machine try to continue to do their fear-mongering, which is exactly what's happening in Orange County. So we don't have a clear-cut, here's the path, but what it really is this fight is not over. And we're in it together now more than we ever have been.
Great. So how
And-
can people who are new to this game, how can they stay connected? How can they get connected to us?
That's a great question, Summer. I feel like we need to have an answer for that I don't have off the top of my head. And Tim, I don't think that we have a website or a hub or anything like that. But it sounds like we need to create one very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could turn back on the SB-277 Facebook page, because it was a great place for people to at least come together. But look, there's a lot of groups.
We still do have a lot of Facebook groups, yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of groups, and we will be connected. Absolutely. I don't have a short, easy answer to that, but thank you, Summer, for your amazing work and your 1,000 signatures and your dedication to this. And we will continue. This opened up and sparked a movement, not the referendum itself, but all of this. SB-277 brought a lot of people and woke a lot of people up that weren't around when AB 2109 was going on. And that's when I got into the fight, even though I don't have kids that were affected by it. I just felt like it was wrong, and it was something that caused me to step up. But I'm going to let you go so we can get more calls. But thank you, Summer.
Thank you.
All right. We've got Gabe Silva. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Tim?
Going good. How about you?
So, I'm doing all right. So I just have a question. I was listening to the show a few weeks ago when Jen Colleen was on there interviewing with you, and she was giving Sacramento team the props for being Team Awesome, which I think they are totally awesome. I noticed that there was an ad on there that said paid for by SB-277 Referendum. I was wondering if you indirectly or directly received any funds from the donations.
Yes. There was advertising on my show.
Okay, so that's what I was interested in, and the reason why I ask is because I was just thinking that a lot of people that listen to your show, they're pretty much they're your followers, and they are behind SB-277 referendum. So I was thinking that if we had a budget for advertising, that maybe if it would have been better spend it on mainstream radio or some of that sorts, that we could have influenced some minds that were not necessarily wanting to sign the petition.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is a concept, but I don't know how to answer your question except to say that the referendum advertised on my radio show and basically supported me in that regard. So, more, you can direct more questions on that to Lauren. She's the one, it was from her committee. And, that is not an unusual occurrence. But yeah, it would have been nice. It would have been nice to get a lot of media on board, and the media gave us a total blackout. But in terms of advertising on mainstream radio shows, I certainly think that might have been something worthwhile.
Okay, and then I was also wondering if you left Fresno about 8:00 in the morning and you got to Jen's at 1:00. Did Jen already have the petitions from the validation company at that point before you arrived?
I didn't leave Fresno at 8 in the morning.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
No, I was in a parking lot at 8:30 with Lauren.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so did Jen have the petitions from the validation company at that point already, or are you just talking about the mail that she had to sort that you grabbed on the way up?
Yeah, Jen already had Jen had picked up the petitions from the professional company that morning. I brought her up a ton of work on top of that to go through and sort through stacks and stacks and stacks of petitions that had to be sorted into different counties, and everything had to be packaged up a certain way and everything else. But it was a hell of an effort that she expended.
Absolutely. I totally can understand how she'd be frustrated with all that work and stuff like that. I know that there was a few people there that they wanted to help and stuff, and she was just like too overwhelmed. She was like, no, stay in your car. She had too much going on, so she wasn't really thinking clearly or whatever. She wasn't accepting help because I don't know if it's because it's a risk or for security reasons or whatnot, but I can only imagine, how frustrated you'd be if you have this big bundle of mail and you're like, hey, I'm supposed to be leaving right now. I have to sort through all this stuff. So, all right, well, that's all the questions I have, really. So I appreciate your time.
Okay, Gabe. All right, we're going to take a question from John Preston. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm frustrated as hell, I gotta say. I'm just hearing from a number of folks. From Jen, she was a volunteer. She's never done anything like this. I'm hearing Lauren ran the campaign, but she was not involved deeply with the volunteers. I'm just dumbfounded that, and it's not a finger point. I'm jaw dropped. I worked on the elections committees through the Screen Actors Guild a number of times. I never once, it never came down the pipeline. Hey, is there anyone who's ever been involved with petition gathering, verification process? And I was at the Green Festival as well. I was involved with this, Tim, since it was in the bill form as well. And it never once came out, hey, we need leadership in this, people that have had experience. And I'm hearing, God bless everybody. Everybody put their heart and soul into it. But there's a difference between working hard and working smart. And it just seems like there was no captain at the helm of this ship. It's like, thank you, Tim, for taking this on, but delegating positions to people, getting multiple people, not having the foresight to know there are going to be thousands of petitions that need to be sorted. And Jen is now saying, I was overloaded. Well, of course, it's the end of the line. That's where things happen.
Well, I think, John, hold on. I think you're misinterpreting a little bit. We're simply talking about the last day. We're not talking about the entire campaign. Certainly, you want to know who stepped up as leaders? They're the people who stepped up. And they're the people who I identified as I was traveling around meeting people who actually were effective at getting things done. We had some insanely incredible leaders. We had Heather Hawks, who worked tirelessly and rarely slept for the first 20 days and would send emails at 2 o'clock in the morning and then back at 5 in the morning, and was insanely effective. We had people like Summer Garner, who organized the entire county of Orange and produced more. She squeezed more orange juice out of Orange County in the way of actual signatures than I ever thought even possible. And a ton of other people who stepped up. So when you say that, I'm not dismissing
everybody's efforts. What I'm saying is that everybody, the leadership, and getting the petitions out and having all the volunteers gathering, you can squeeze as much juice if you want, but if you don't hit it in the glass, it doesn't count. I mean, that I'm just curious, how is it that, when it comes right down to it, running a marathon, it doesn't matter if you ran 22.9 miles. If you don't cross the line in time, how is it that there weren't a number of teams going, hey, these 10 people are here to sort through Orange County. These 10 people are
They did that. They did that. That was how they did it in the larger counties. They had groups of people previously identified that they called in, and they worked way into multiple hours to make sure that they could collect signatures for as long as possible and still have their living rooms full of people. This is Heather Hawks. Have their living rooms full of people until 2 o'clock in the morning, to make sure that everybody was working together to get things sorted. And this had to do with maximizing the amount of time we could have people in the field. Yes, a lot of people were green. We put a lot of APBs out there. We put a lot of tell us who you know, call all your friends, who wants to be involved. And it was a lot of trying to get the right people in the right leadership positions. We didn't have a lot of time. So, to your point, yes, there are people with experience out there. They didn't get involved. They didn't show up. So they helped, but they weren't people who were regional leaders. So it was a combination effort.
Okay, I get it. Well, for what it's worth, you've got my number. I personally took on head on my Waldorf school, and the Waldorf schools you would think would be the first ones to get everybody to sign. We were going up against the school board. We were going up against administration, and I still got, a couple hundred signatures from our school alone. Hey, I must have missed, that's the thing. I was involved on 10 Facebook sites.
Yeah. Hey, John,
I clearly didn't have all of them,
I'm
and I was
say
missing
thanks,
the point.
Thanks for your call, but I got to let you go and bring some other people on. Okay, we're going to take Irene Koppel.
Hello. Hi.
Irene.
Hi, Tim. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Tim, I understand that I heard that some of the people turning in at the county level, turning in the petitions, were upset. They felt they had gotten less petitions back than they had sent up. So as a result of that, they signed affidavits stating to that effect, that indeed they're turning petitions in because they have a time frame they have to turn them in. But they actually had more petitions to turn in, which they don't have available at that time, so therefore they're turning less than they originally had. Is that correct?
There were a number of people who felt like they got back fewer petitions than they turned in. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the many of them signed a letter that stated that that fact. And they turned that in with their petitions to the county registrar of voters.
Mm-hmm. What will that do for us? I mean, would that buy us any extra time, for example, by doing something like that?
I think it is a matter of recording the issue and creating some sort of a paper trail, at least in terms of that communication.
Mm-hmm. For what purpose? For purpose of investigation?
Well, yeah, so that there could be some sort of an investigation. And there's been a tremendous amount of discussion and analysis, and many of the regional coordinators felt that that was absolutely the case, and some of them felt that they couldn't sign an affidavit. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag there. But there are a number of people who looked into their actual petitions and were looking for specific petitions coming back from specific people who had garnered thousands of signatures, and they searched through the entire box and could only find, a half or a little more than half of the ones that those individuals turned in. So there clearly were some issues raised, and they have not yet been answered.
Because they do know what happened. So that was a clear flag to them. They knew what they were looking for. They found fewer than what they expected to find, and they knew they should have found those.
And just so you know on the timing, this was all so I dropped off petitions on, let's see, was it Saturday night? Yeah, Saturday night, driving up and down the state. And then Sunday, I picked up all the paid petitions, took those to Los Angeles, to the convention center, where we then distributed those into the boxes all around Southern California, so those could be turned in as well. And that evening, late in the evening, like 11 o'clock at night, we were on a conference call discussing this and trying to figure out what to do about it. And
Tim,
so,
your gut level feeling, what happened to those petitions? What's your gut level feeling?
My gut level feeling is that something happened. I believe there was some sort of what's the right word? Sabotage.
Untoward. Let's just say untoward. Okay, sabotage. Yeah. So that would make it a crime. I mean, wouldn't that trigger a criminal investigation? I mean, it's a crime. It's a crime to interfere with something like this.
It would trigger a criminal investigation if you can get an attorney to get a warrant. You've got to go before a judge and get a warrant.
Mm-hmm. And so, what are we doing about that?
There is still some work being done on that. Summer Garner was leading that up, and I have not yet heard the outcome. She was contacting an attorney and looking into doing some investigating and getting affidavits from the regional coordinators who are willing to sign something. So that effort is not...
Okay, because you need the evidence or some evidence before you go to an attorney and get a warrant. So who would be conducting the investigation? Is it a private investigator, or how would you go about doing
that would all have to be done privately in order to trigger the government. And I was on a conference call the other day with 3 attorneys, and what they told me was you're going to have to get somebody to then take this evidence to a judge in the county where you believe that the malfeasance may have happened, and get them to actually issue a warrant. And right now that has not happened, and I'm not going to go any further on any details on that.
Okay. So I won't ask any, because obviously I have other questions about that, but I won't ask that because I assume you're proceeding on whatever you think would be the likeliest.
I'm proceeding on cleaning up a lot of messes, Irene. Okay. But thank you for your call.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. We're going to bring on Terry Rourke. Terry Rourke, a familiar name. How are you? Terry, you're on air.
Okay, I got the mute off. Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call. Just want to thank you for all of your effort to protect our children. We entered the fight with you in 2011 when we were holding our first veto rally in Sacramento against AB 2109, and you stepped into the fray to protect our rights and so that we can protect our children. And for that, I have always admired you, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Terry.
My question is, and this is one of the pieces of the puzzle that has always confused me, is why were there 2 separate committee filings with the Secretary of State with 2 separate systems of accounting?
Okay. The answer is very, very simple. And it all revolves around Lauren, Lauren resigned halfway through the campaign because she just couldn't work well with others. She sent me a text. She said, I quit. I'm going to quit at the end of the month. I asked her to hand over the first account. I asked her to hand over the Facebook page, and I asked her to hand over the website. She refused, flat out refused. First, she said she would do it. She said she would do whatever I needed. I actually have a text. I have a screenshot of a text where she said, I'll give you whatever you need. Just tell me who you want me to turn it over to. But then she wouldn't keep her word. And this is just part of Lauren being Lauren. She just can't help herself. And when that happened, 2 things happened. She then kicked me off the Facebook. I was no longer an admin. So she unfriended me so that I was nothing. I couldn't even touch the page. Secondly, she kicked me off the committee. So that very first committee, which I was named on since I'm the proponent, she just wholesale knocked me out of it. And I found that out by talking to the FPPC. So as soon as I found that out, and I had been in talks with a number of very major donors because I'd spent a great deal of time doing outreach to all the different people who had been involved in this fight prior to me, at least SB-277, not back to AB 2109. But a lot of those people, it took, a couple of weeks to bring them around. We had a number of meetings, went to Los Angeles. Heather and I went to Los Angeles multiple times, meeting with people, doing outreach in order to then raise money, big money, the kind of money that would have helped us win. The problem was we had no place to send the money because nobody trusted Lauren. Lauren had shown herself to be somebody that was just, one day she'd say one thing and the next day she was, off on some other tangent, none of which made any sense. You couldn't depend on her mood to stay the same. So in the end, the only valid, viable way that we could quickly operate was to set up another committee. I actually informed Lauren that we were going to set up a committee, and the express purpose of the committee was going to be to raise funds for the paid petition gatherers. So that's why there were 2 separate committees.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. I appreciate it because it really threw me for a loop when I saw this happening, and I couldn't discern the reasoning behind it. Obviously, I didn't have the intimate knowledge of what was happening.
Well, and I don't like going out and telling everybody, your all the dirty laundry behind the scenes. The bottom line is, if Lauren had simply turned over the committee and the bank or the committee, the bank account, the Facebook page, and the website, and resigned like she said she was going to, this entire effort would have been a very, very different effort, because that was when we still had 6 to 7 weeks. But we burned a whole bunch of time about, just trying to get Lauren to actually work with us. Eventually she did, but it was never, we never recovered from that loss of momentum. Anyway, thanks for all your work, Terry, and your incredible efforts.
You're welcome, Tim. And it's, the war rages on, and, I just want to call everyone that's concerned to pull together. The battle is way bigger than any of us, and we need to be able to look our grandchildren in the eyes and have them living in a free society where they are not force injected for any reason, whether it be to go to school or to walk into a public park or a movie theater. This insanity of medical tyranny has to stop. So thank you to everyone who's concerned. Let's regroup and get the job done.
Thank you, Terry. Godspeed. Okay, we got Deborah Robert. Hi, Deborah. How are you?
I'm just like everybody else, wondering how this is going to turn out, and really sad to hear I missed part of your show because a lot of us can't get through. I was able to get through on the phone, fortunately.
The good news is this is going to be taped. It has been recorded, and we'll put it up somewhere.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know about the behind the scenes things or the any of the relationship or issues that were going on. We were in the streets, working hard to get signatures, and just really disappointed to hear that there was any kind of disruption there. But
I'm disappointed because it's continuing in that you have one individual who is out there just going around everywhere and posting all kinds of crazy stuff about a lot of people who are really good and amazing people who worked really hard, and it's just disappointing. There's no purpose to it, and I would hope that people would not just take one person's word for it, but would understand that they know the people that they work side by side with.
I stayed out of those conversations, so to hear you talk about it tonight is the first that I've had any kind of confirmation there was something going on. So I guess, what a lot of us are wondering, where do we go from here? How do we get back our medical freedom? How do we fight this tyranny?
Well, the first thing we do is we never give up, ever.
Exactly.
And we need to understand a couple things. Number one, there is an incredible group of people that I got to know that initially were against the referendum that eventually came on board. People like Janet Nalbandian out of Los Angeles, who has coordinated and worked with attorneys from all over the country. She's raised money in a PAC to make a legal challenge to this. So that will go forward, and people should support that. And secondly, I think it's time we get back to good old-fashioned civil disobedience. There's a point at which we just tell the government, you know what, screw you. You don't get to screw with my kid. You don't get to kick him out of school. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think that's what's going to need to happen.
Right. Pushback.
Yeah, big time. And continuing education, because one thing that we did do with this referendum, regardless of the ultimate outcome, is you're going to have educated and touched and piqued the interest and raised the awareness of thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And to me, that in the end, that and the movement and the bonding that came together. And look, all of this negativity is going to shed, just like viruses shed. And then there's going to be nothing left but the pure, absolute, united front of people who are what I call warrior poets, who refuse to allow the government to control their lives and put their children at risk. So, Deborah, thank you so much for your support and for your call.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Godspeed. Okay, I'm going to bring Shannon Primer. Shannon, how are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
Very well.
Okay, I'm hearing from multiple sources that some counties were told that they should stop collecting and others were not.
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. Do you mean in terms
Literally
of
Friday of last week, or a week ago Friday, we were told to stop collecting in some counties. In San Diego County, we were told to keep collecting.
Shannon, this is Heather. It had to do with the logistics of those counties and getting in the forms. So even though the deadline was universal across the state, when we said, because as was addressed earlier in the call, the coordinators wanted to be more involved in delivering the forms themselves, what we then had to do was turn it over to some extent and say, you've got to figure out the logistics of your county. If you've got a huge county and you've got hubs that are 2 and 4 hours apart, and you've got to go around and collect 6 forms from those hubs, you've got to figure it out. We can't manage that for you. So some counties had to pull the plug, and some of them did it very quickly because they knew that their time was limited and that they had a lot of ground to cover. Other counties like San Diego, we had incredible teamwork in San Diego, so it was literally chains of phone calls and drop off to get them to where they needed to be, and it worked out. So it had to do with the county-specific logistics and nothing else when it came to getting those forms in the hands of the coordinators to get them turned into the registrar.
Okay, so my next question is, my husband came up with a brilliant plan that if we think there was any sabotage, that we should subpoena back all of our petitions and we should all look through. Because somebody like me, if you're going to sabotage this, you're not going to take my petitions out of this. But somebody like one of my friends who's just a little autism mom, if any of her petitions are missing, we can prove sabotage. Why are we not doing that? And I know for a fact that Tim got the email on this because I was on the email.
Okay, what email are you talking about?
There was an email between 3 people in San Diego that my husband is a government teacher. He looked into it. His thought was they're going to destroy all of our petitions, and then we can't prove sabotage. So his thought was we subpoena them back, we get back all of our petitions, and then we have each county the opportunity to look through and see what's missing.
I think that's a good idea. I'm not sure what the process is, but we can find out in terms of getting the petitions back.
My husband called the state. Like I said, he's a government teacher. And they said they might be able to get us photocopies of them. And when we said there's not a lawyer who will do that, there is one lawyer here in San Diego that I did already talk to on Monday of last week about this when all the information came out. And she is willing to take the case.
Why don't you send me that specific information again, along with the lawyer's phone number, and I will make that contact.
Okay, well, I can tell you that I know that I was on the email that was originally sent last Monday night when we were up late at 3 in the morning.
I get thousands and thousands and thousands of emails. So once it's gone, it's really hard for me to find. If you would resend it, I will look into that.
Okay. I mean, it's just, why should our stuff be destroyed? And then why should we not have the opportunity to look through it and find what's missing?
I think you make a good point. And thank you for all your efforts, Shannon.
And Heather can attest to this. I went to Sacramento 6 times on this. I have a severely disabled child, and I'm not going to let this go. I'm in it to win it, and I think we need to keep fighting for whatever it takes to get back our petitions and show either way, I'm fair to say that, either way, whether we got screwed or we did not get screwed. But I want the truth to come out. Heather?
Agreed.
I agree. Yep, I was on mute. Sorry, I agree.
Okay, I just want to say, I mean, Heather has met me personally. I've done this for 11 years. I fought long and hard. I put 3,000 miles on my car just the last 2 months, and my car never went to Sacramento, and I went 6 times. So I am feeling a little bitter right now, and I really do think we all deserve answers.
And are you?
And I'm sorry if I sound bitter. That I'm frustrated right now.
I understand. And that's why we're on this call. I wanted to give you all the answers that we have. And we don't have all the answers, but I think you have a good idea. And we will see we'll see if that's possible. And if it is, then it certainly presents another avenue.
The only thing is the longer we wait, the more chance the state has to destroy all the petitions, and then we don't have the right to see them.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to bring on Frances Morgan. Frances, how are you?
Am I on? Not too good. I also am very upset that this went down the way it did. And I have a few questions. I want to know, with that $150,000 donor, that person stepped forward first before the people on the GoFundMe started sending in their contributions.
No, that's not true.
How did it work?
The GoFundMe was started several weeks prior, and we had already raised and we already used and contracted with the money from the GoFundMe a long time prior to the $150,000 coming in.
But you said that you had money left over from the $150,000, so you had money left over, correct?
Well, Frances, it's very simple. We had to raise $100,000 to launch the paid petition gathering effort. As soon as we did that, we did that. We put $80,000 in a contract to get 40,000 signatures initially. I then went and used the fact that we were raising money with the GoFundMe, and I called dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of big donors, people that I knew could write $50,000 checks, $150,000 checks. I met with Hollywood celebrities. I had dinners at 11 o'clock at night in Los Angeles. And you know what? In the end, every single one of the people I asked for money to match the volunteers' money, every single one of them said no, except one lady who shall remain unnamed. And because her money came in so late in the game, and I made a commitment to her to get her money, that I would use it last. And the bottom line is, the volunteers' money was already committed. It was already in the contract. So there was nothing untoward about that in any regard. Anyway, okay. But thanks for your call.
No.
Okay, we're going to take a call from Kimberly. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim. I just want to thank you very much for all this, for everything that you've done, and I also wanted to ask what the next step would be. I have a daughter that would be going to school next year. I really don't want to be forced into any vaccinations for her.
Well, and I absolutely agree with you. You're going to need to pay very close attention to the legal effort, because there's going to be a lawsuit. Now that the referendum is almost completely over, and look, I wish I had really good news in that regard, and I just feel like ultimately every indicator is telling us that we aren't going to make it, and that's painful, and it sucks. So
right. I mean, a lot of my friends too online are getting that feeling and that pressure that it might not, and we're still holding on to what little hope that we have.
We're holding on to what little hope we have, and that's it. Okay, so if it does not qualify, which we're going to know in a couple days, and we'll know our number, we'll know what we did. All right, then the next step is you've got to know what your legal rights are. And do you have a PBE right now?
I do, and I'm unfortunately with Kaiser, so that is really killing me because I've already had to fire one of my daughter's pediatricians for giving her an extra dose of Hep A shot that had I not signed that, then I would have maybe known what was in front of me, but I just jumped on board with everything that was going on. I did get scared about the whole measles crap thing and fell for that okie doke and went in and got my daughters up to date. Now I'm just completely kicking myself in the ass, really.
So okay.
I do have a PBE. It's just not signed. I feel like I'm going to have issues with that.
Heather, do you have any advice for her?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is complicated because it's case by case. Get it signed as soon as you can. And, maybe I almost want to talk offline with you and get you to some doctors that I know and kind of talk about your specific personal case. Let's do that. Kim, find me on Facebook. I'm Heather Feather, and let's talk about it.
Yes, I definitely just want to get the hell away from Kaiser as soon as possible. It's just been giving me a headache.
Thank you,
thank
Kimberly.
you so much, Tim. All right.
Godspeed. All right, we're going to bring on Amanda Tripp. Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
I'm very well.
I just want to say thank you for doing the referendum itself, and we put a lot of effort into it, and it's a sad failure.
Well, thank you, and appreciate everything you've done as well. Did you have a question?
Thank you. I did. I was just wondering, was there a reason that Lauren gave us why she didn't mail in the petitions to Fresno on Saturday?
What do you mean, mail in the petitions to Fresno?
I was told that she received late petitions and had held on to them and didn't mail them to Fresno prior to Saturday.
Okay. The process, I met her on Saturday morning at about 8:30 in the parking lot of the hotel that I stayed at that night in Fresno. And she brought me all of the mail that had come in. And she gave it to me. And here's the way the turn-in works. All of the petitions have to be together in one box in one submission. You can't take, like, let's say you get 100 petitions for your county and somebody else is turning in the petitions. You can't separately mail those in. They literally have to be in the box with.
Right, which I'm confused. How come she didn't contact the Fresno coordinator before they turned in on Monday with those late petitions from Fresno? I understand that the letter you give out to the coordinators is for them to turn in the petitions in one batch. I'm just wondering why she lacked communication from Saturday, Sunday to Monday for Fresno.
I don't know how to answer that particular question when you're talking about stuff that had come in for Fresno, because she could have pulled it out and then put it in the boxes. But that's a question for Lauren. All I was addressing was the issue of all the mail that had come in for petitions from around the whole state, which I took to Sacramento. They got sorted. Then I drove back down to Los Angeles, where I arrived at 1 a.m. after making 2 stops along the way, and got every last petition in the hands of every last person that was going to do a turn-in, so they could then get all the last-minute petitions on Sunday from the Green Fest and a bunch of. I couldn't believe how many petitions we pulled down from the Green Fest. It was insane. So that was the system that we put in place. It was actually pretty impressive, even though it was thrown together last minute, and it was certainly, it wasn't like organized the way the military is organized. But I got to say, most of the people involved were women, and they communicated well with each other, and it came off like it had been a military operation. I was really impressed and proud of everybody involved.
I've seen a lot of that operation. I was impressed also.
Yes.
I have one more question for you, Tim, real quick. Do you trust Lauren?
After I judge a person by their behavior, and the behavior I've seen in the last week has really been disturbing. If you go online on the SB-277 referendum website and read the stuff that she wrote, She admits
Unfortunately,
she unpublished the Facebook page after I repeatedly asked her about it. And I wanted to communicate. I still want to communicate with everybody. I can't. I have no way. We have 12,000 people who are part of that group, and I have no control over that. And it's extremely frustrating. And there were a whole lot of other things that happened and attacks that she made on individuals for no reason whatsoever, like Jen Colleen, like Heather Hawks, like Summer Garner, like many of the people who were working their tails off were being unnecessarily slandered on Facebook. And anyway, so I just find that really distracting and unnecessary and disappointing.
Okay. Do you plan on working with her in the future then?
No.
Good. I appreciate that very much, Tim. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You got it.
Godspeed.
Godspeed. Okay, I'm going to bring on Brandy McClay. Hi, Brandy. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Good. My question is two-part. If this is a repeat question, I apologize. I missed the first half of the call. Where did the 300,000 number come from? And why was I told by Heather face-to-face that that number was accurate and not exaggerated?
Well, the 300,000 number came from me. And that number was a guesstimate. It was a good faith guesstimate based on the number of petitions that we had collected and were collecting. Not all of them were all in one place. So I was taking estimates from people in different parts of the state, adding them together. I also added in the paid petition contract that we had already let out, which, of course, they only came in with half. And then I also included in that, and this is where I probably made a big mistake. I expected to get a lot more petitions back from the chiropractors because that was a big part of our effort. We had put a great deal of time and money and resource into mailing and getting to chiropractors. And I thought, given how many chiropractors we had on board, that we might be able to expect as many as 50,000 signatures coming in that final, 10 days. And I was incorrect. That is my number. And I gave it to everybody, and it was not accurate, but it was arrived at with the information that I had. And unfortunately, after talking to the professionals in terms of how they count things and look at things, some of my assumptions were a little too optimistic.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go to Jennifer Trisdale. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good. So I have a question, and I want to know what kind of legal actions can we take against Pam himself personally? He's been busted lying. He was trying to get people away from signing the referendum, to stay away from us. He was mocking us. He's got busted lying several times. I want to know what we're doing about him.
Well, here is the thing about lying and essentially putting your own opinion out there. Because I had a number of people who would send me a message and say, hey, Senator Pan is saying that you shouldn't sign the referendum and blah, blah, blah. Well, he took an op-ed that had been written by somebody in a newspaper, and there were dozens of them all over the state. He put it up on his Facebook page. He put up a post. And in the end, he just put his opinion. Now, that's not illegal. It's not an interfering with the referendum. Interfering with the referendum is when you stand in front of somebody gathering signatures and interfere with their ability to get signatures. That's literally what is illegal and what is prosecutable.
How did you know he wasn't doing one?
Well, I don't. But if anyone had any evidence of him doing that, they could actually call the police and have him arrested on the spot. But that's very different than somebody advocating for their viewpoint. Even if they say things that are not true when they're advocating for their viewpoint, That's not illegal to lie. If it was, everybody in Congress would be in jail. So, but here's the thing. If somebody slanders you, you can go after them. You can send them a cease and desist letter. You can take them to small claims court if you don't want to hire a lawyer, or you can hire a lawyer. If somebody says something untrue about you, and believe me, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things that are untrue about me right now, and I don't want to have to hire a lawyer because it costs money, and it's frustrating. But at any rate, you know what? Pan is going to get karma. There's karma in this universe. And I'm going to say it that way because I don't want anyone to misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not threatening him in any way. But I do believe that what he has done is he has put the health of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of kids at risk. He's either put their health or their educational opportunity at risk, or they're going to wind up leaving the state of California, and we can't have any more good people leave. But thank you for your call, Jennifer.
Well, hold on. I got one.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to drop her that fast, but I'm trying to get through as many people as possible. Okay. Shauna Dowd, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tim. How are you doing?
Good. Is that Shauna from San Diego?
That's me.
Hey, I didn't know your last name. Nice to have you on.
So first, I just want to say thank you for all you've done at great personal expense, both in your personal life and obviously in whatever other endeavors that you have. I was involved in San Diego with the primary fight against SB-277 when it was first introduced. I'm hearing a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking from disheartened and frustrated people. And while I understand that, I just want to let everyone know that an undertaking of this size is a tremendous burden, and the people involved are beyond dedicated. There's always going to be people sort of backdooring, and there's always going to be drama that a lot of people are not necessarily aware of. So thank you for handling that. I hear a lot of questions coming as to where we go from here. I realize there's not a clear answer to that, but certainly one of the things we can do at this point is start getting our own people into these offices. The reason this passed in the first place was because we don't have very many allies in any sort of influential positions. The best thing we can do right now is put more of them, like Senators Joel Anderson and Rocky Chavez, Assemblyman Brian Jones. Get involved in local politics. Get involved beyond signing petitions, beyond protesting, beyond going on the news. There are California school boards, the city councils. These are places we started this, and if we'd had more sympathizers at that point, we probably could have built on this faster. So let's get our people in and start undoing all of this damage.
That can actually
give us some line of action.
Shauna, that's a great. So we
don't lose the momentum we've built.
No, that's a great point, and I hadn't talked about that, but you are spot on. And one thing that happens out of a movement like this is there are a lot of people who get connected, and those people are people that can help you get elected, and then help you get elected on a single issue, and they will certainly, you could have the deciding vote that you put into office, but you got to start in your own neighborhood. You got to start at school boards and city councils and open assembly seats and things like that. But thank you so much for your incredible dedication.
Thank you, Tim. Sorry I didn't have a question for you, but you guys did a great job.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
That's okay. We're burning through the trying to get everybody's question to the extent that we can. And I'm trying to give everybody one question each. Hey, Nick Johansson, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, Tim, how are you doing? Actually, you and I met in Oakland at the Unified School Boarding meeting over there. Here's where I'm at. Actually, I'm gonna just dump my question and go kind of right to where I feel. Kind of piggybacking on your last caller. The problem we've had right from the gate is that you have a lot of people who have no political awareness as far as how the game's been played. We're learning as we go, right? Well, because we've had so much disconnection, we've gathered pretty quickly. We've made some huge momentum. A lot of people are disheartened. A lot of people are frustrated. We all know that. But where we go from here is we need to really get connected. And I've learned one thing that I think we need to kind of, as a group, be unified on, and that's this point. We're not going to win this thing with politicians. Really, at the end of the day, we're going to win it by waking people up. And if we're not focusing on that, the media is not going to help us. Unfortunately, a lot of people are paid for in the whole bit, and we know how the game's being played. But we have to get the numbers on our side, and we have to come up with a unified campaign to do so. And all this frustration about where we went wrong and all that, I think is a huge waste of time. I don't think it's productive. And if anything, I think it hurts our cause. I think people need to stop being angry and start getting focused. Because at the end of the day, if we're not changing public opinion, it's all for nothing. And that's my personal take on it. I just want to lend that to the conversation at this point.
I appreciate that, Nick. And
all right, Tim, have a good evening.
Hey, same to you. Christy Alonzo. Christy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for everything you've done, and thanks so much to all of the amazing volunteers who stepped up and just gave everything to this effort. So I just have a super quick question. It's my understanding that the petition company that we hired is called Arno. And I just am curious as to whether or not you've ever hired them before, ever worked with them before, and what made you hire them?
Yes, I had a prior relationship with them, even though I had not specifically hired them. I had had conversations with them on a previous referendum. And Mike Arno has a name, and he's got a respected name. So that I met with him. He made a proposal to us that Heather had received and gone after. But at any rate, there's a number of people in this business, and he is one of the most reputable.
Okay. Can I throw in one more question? I know I just said I had one question.
Okay, go.
Well, when Lauren approached you, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, but what approached you to go file the referendum?
No, Lauren did not approach me to go file a referendum. My wife approached me to go file a referendum after having a conversation with Lauren, because Lauren had put up a Facebook post that was very cryptic, which is something she's good at. She's actually pretty good at putting messages on Facebook. And she said something to the effect that there was an individual who voted for SB-277 who was going to pull together a referendum effort, and the whole political establishment was going to be behind him. And that in the end, this individual was then going to make sure the referendum failed and then run for governor. And it's a person whom no one in the movement would want as governor, because he's a Republican who voted for the bill. And so my wife had a conversation with Lauren, and I had already been thinking about filing a referendum. And my wife and I talked. She begged me to do it. And she also said, I've been talking to Lauren, and I was aware of Lauren from my governor's race. She had defended me rather vociferously. And at any rate, sorry.
But there wasn't a lot of history there. You guys hadn't worked together in the past.
Oh, no. I mean, I'd met her one time when she came to a rally that I was at. But the bottom line was she said, hey, I can do a bunch of the campaign stuff and make it really easy. I can throw up a website really quick and all this. And I said, okay, that sounds great. And I got a hold of my former legislative director, got him to file the referendum and do the paperwork, and and the rest is history. Anyway, thanks.
Gotcha.
Thank you for your call, Christy.
Thank you so much, Tim. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, we've got Luba Meltzer. Hi, Luba. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am good.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. I just wanted to say, first of all, for taking the reins on this particular issue. It was quite a beast of an issue, I know. I had a question in regards to do we happen to have any information, or do we know how the opposition got the numbers on how many petitions were submitted before we did, or who they got that info from?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by the opposition got numbers.
Like the numbers that were published in the LA Times and things like that.
Oh, there's been a ton of speculation on numbers, and there are pieces and parts of numbers floating around everywhere. But nobody's going to know the final number until we see it. Because in the end, I can't tell you how many petitions we were sorting in the back of cars and pickup trucks in the parking garage at the LA Convention Center, and none of those were counted. They were just literally put in boxes, and people went home, and those got turned in the next morning.
Okay,
so,
that was I made that assumption because I figured, there was such a rush towards the end to get as many petitions in that you guys probably didn't have time to count them all.
Yeah, and that,
I just wanted to find out.
That was really a remarkable operation given the way it just sort of pulled itself together very organically.
Right.
Anyway, thank you for the call, Luben. Godspeed.
No problem. Thank you. Godspeed.
All right. Let's see. We've got Marissa Glabman. Hi, Marissa. How are you?
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm very well.
I wanted to ask really quickly, you've done a referendum before, and unfortunately that wasn't successful. Based on what you learned from that particular experience, what was the main thing that you did differently for the SB-277 referendum? And number two, what would you have done differently?
Sure.
To looking back now.
Okay. Well, the referendum I did was back in 2011, had to do with the California DREAM Act. And the biggest problem we had was we had 20,000 volunteers and we never organized any of them. We had no leadership. We had nothing. We literally we barely had put up a website. We handed out a couple of phone numbers. They were overwhelmed because it was announced on the John and Ken show. And the whole thing was just a massive disaster from day one, even though John and Ken held like petition gathering drives for us almost every week, it seemed like. And we did those at radio stations all over the state. That's a very popular populist issue, okay? Denying, free college tuition to people who are in the country illegally when we don't even offer it to people who serve in our armed forces who get transferred into California through no fault of their own. So that issue was one that was, quote, mainstream, and the mainstream media helped us immensely. I mean, I was every 2 weeks, I was on Good Day Los Angeles talking about it. So we were able to create a great deal of awareness. And in this case, we didn't have the media at all. They completely blacked us out other than saying that we had launched the referendum. That was it. So I felt the most important thing we could do was develop leaders, develop a structure, have some sort of a plan, and execute it. And a big part of that in the beginning, as I stated earlier, was reaching out to all these groups. I knew the groups had been fighting with each other. I'd been hearing about it from a lot of the different individuals because I was friends with people in a lot of the different groups. And I also had certain people on my sort of executive leadership team that were giving me the insight into different people so that we could try to bring them on board. So we worked really hard at that because what I considered to be the key to victory, because we didn't have the kind of awareness that we had in that previous referendum I ran, was going to be money. We had to get some money in, and we had to go out there and hire paid petition gatherers. The problem was nobody wanted to donate. People were uncomfortable. They It heard all kinds of stuff. There was a whole negative campaign running against the referendum with all the money people. And, you know, you couldn't make up half the stuff that we had to overcome, and we still overcame it. The problem was we seemed to always overcome everything one day late, and we were always $1 too short. That's just what seemed to have happened here. And what I would have done differently if I could go back, I would have started much earlier reaching out to the groups. I would have started with some of the money people and gotten commitments. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without getting those groups on board and enlisting the support of some of the key leaders who eventually came on. But as I said, it was always too little, too late. And that was the story of the whole thing, was we ran out of time.
Right. And so you're referring to the money that, because I know you tried to get donors. Were you trying to get donors, big donors first before you did the GoFundMe page?
I started calling donors literally the day after I filed the referendum. I sat down and met with billionaires who gave me a half-hour meeting, and the only thing they said in the entire meeting was polio. And absolutely refused to write checks.
And then at that point, did you think that you were going to start the GoFundMe page sooner? Did you think, maybe we should start this sooner than later?
I've got 3 minutes left on this whole thing. So what I'm going to say is the GoFundMe page, I started it to simply prime the pump to get the money that nobody else would give us. And if I could embarrass some of these donors who had said no into saying yes, that was my goal. But thank you for your call. We're gonna wrap this up. And Heather, did you have anything you wanted to add to any of that?
No, there's a lot, and we only have 3 minutes. For everybody who's listening, I think the real part of this for me has just been the honor of working with all of you and seeing the unbelievable effort. I knew going into this that there was a chance. That's why I did it. I believe I'm an optimist, and I'm a powerful optimist. And what I saw working with the volunteers over the last couple of months absolutely blew me away. And so all I can say is that there may be some unresolved frustrations out there, and to anyone feeling that, you are not alone. Please know that. None of this has been taken lightly. None of this has been easy for any of us. And I just can't thank you all enough, because you guys, you killed it. You really did. And I just want to thank you all so much.
Yeah. And well, thank you, Heather. Thank you for your dedication and your service in this cause. Jen, did you want to add something for 30 seconds?
Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody too. It's been an honor to be a part of this with everybody. I appreciate being taken off of mute. I think that there were a lot of questions that are important in terms of going forward, but I don't know that those were the questions that really needed to be discussed on this call. I still have some questions, and the public still has some questions. And so, I'd like to put out there that we should possibly revisit this, because I'm a part of the team and this is ending, and I've still got some concerns that need addressed.
Oh, well, we've answered every question that came in.
Well, I personally have some questions.
Well, shoot.
So, Arno, I'm curious to know, we chose to work with Arno because he's reputable, and I'm not saying he is or he isn't, and I don't know what dictates industry standard as reputable. But I'm really, because I'm left holding the bag and a lot of people are pointing fingers at me, I've got questions about how things worked through Arno's company, and I'm wondering why there was no checks and balances on the flow of the petitions. I mean, I picked up the petitions on Friday night, and I didn't have to sign any paperwork, and Richard never signed any paperwork when they were being dropped off, and then people were reporting that they had other petitions from other counties in their boxes. And, I'm really curious about all that, because I'm in the line of fire on this. And so I want to know why we're working with a company that had no checks and balances and why we weren't holding them to that.
Okay. I'm not even sure I know how to address that. A lot of what we were doing, as you saw, was literally moving. For instance, why did Lauren take the petitions to Sacramento? Well, because she was the person who was there with a car. She was part of the operation to some extent, and she was the person who volunteered. There were a lot of things that went that way. And in hindsight, certainly could there have been checks and balances, sign in and sign out? I'll admit I didn't think about all that. I thought about getting the petitions where they needed to go and getting them sorted and moving things forward as quickly as possible and trying to make it all happen. And I'm not an operations guy, like down into the nitty-gritty details. I'm much more of a big picture sort of person. But, you raise a good point, and that's certainly something that I can, there's nothing we can do about it now, but I think it's a valid question. It's not your fault. Everything that has transpired on this entire situation throughout the entire referendum is ultimately on me, because I'm the one who is the proponent. I'm the one who took over the entire state and went out and recruited leaders, including, I didn't directly recruit you until I saw how amazing you were. And yes, you stepped up. I asked you to step up, and you stepped up into a huge role. And we didn't have, as you saw, we didn't have a bunch of systems in place. We had a completely different plan. And then I changed the plan from the one that Heather wanted to execute, which was let the professionals do all of it, to one where all of a sudden we were going to get petitions to every county of volunteers. And that really created a cluster. And, all I can say is I own that. And you shouldn't be holding the bag on that. Anybody that has a gripe with you on that just needs to pass it on to me. That is not on you.
I appreciate you saying that, but the public doesn't see the chain the way we see it, and so they have every right to call me to the carpet. They have every right to question my involvement. I don't begrudge them that, but that means that, in order to defend myself, I have to have answers to certain questions, to give answers that are coming at me. And one of the questions that I'm fielding is, where was the chain of command on the petition passing? And as far as wasn't one. And that's curious to me that we would work with a company because the reputation was good, but is it industry standard not to track the flow of the petitions? That's an unanswered question for me. And
I don't know where you're going to find the answer to that question, but I don't have that. This was my first time really working with a professional company. Previously, when I had raised money in a referendum and hired petition gatherers, we actually coordinated the individual petition gatherers around the state and upset their whole system. So we did it completely differently just to save a buck instead of having them organize it. And that was a catastrophe as well. So I would not recommend doing it that way. But Jen, I don't have an answer for you on that, but I don't.
Okay. Can I ask one more before we hang up? And I know that we're over, and I appreciate you staying on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I missed a portion of the call because I couldn't get on earlier, and so I don't know if this was discussed. Perhaps it was, perhaps it wasn't. But I'm not clear yet on what the final number was that the petition company was able to gather.
I gave that number. It was the very first thing I said. 22,812 signatures is what was given to me, and 22,812 signatures is what I was billed for as of yesterday.
Okay, so
out of a contract for 40,000, they were not able to do, and I talked about how they were not able to do as well as the volunteers. I was led to understand that contract was almost completely finished and was preparing to start another contract at a higher rate to motivate petition gatherers And that's where we were going to kick it in with 150,000 plus whatever was left of the GoFundMe. And ultimately, when they couldn't deliver that the original contract, there was a hesitation there to execute a second one.
So, and people, I'm fielding these questions. So I'm asking on behalf of the people. And the reason I'm fielding the questions is because I have not run from social media. I am trying to honor the people who have the questions. And I released a statement the second I found out there was a problem with my FedEx delivery. So I'm trying to honor the people and not run away at this point, even though that would be comfortable for me. And so I'm getting a lot of questions about, are we going to get a refund? And if they got 22,000 and the price was, I don't know, however much money, $2 or $3 per signature, that's either 44 or 66, and we raised 160. So there should be roughly $100,000 that goes back to the people.
Well, that's your accounting. I have the actual bill in front of me, which I actually talked to you about earlier today. And yes, we have still in these are the numbers between the signatures that they got and the actual processing and everything they did on the volunteer signatures. Their contract at 80,000 is executed and billed. So what's left in the account is $73,499.68. Now, there are some odds and ends that we have to wrap up in terms of hiring people to keep us compliant with the FPPC regulations. So that is ongoing right now, including we had to return a couple $1,000s of foreign donations that came in. We have to obtain a certain amount of information, and then we have to fill out reports. And those reports have to be filed in Sacramento. And all of that is ongoing right now. When all of that is done and everything is concluded, then I'm in talks right now, even as of this evening prior to this call, with GoFundMe as to how we can facilitate refunding the money. But what is in the bank account right now, as of this very moment, is $73,499.68.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you for clearing that up. Yes, I was just doing simple math in my head very quickly. So
that's okay. No, but I opened the call with that. Every bit of that was out there on the original, because I wanted to get that out there. Everybody's been asking about it. I agree with you. Everybody has a right to know. And what I've wanted to do on this call is answer every question, which is why I let anybody and everybody and whomever call in and ask whatever. I have not. You can ask the screener. I did not skip a single question, even hard questions. And I think it's important. Now, is everyone going to go back tomorrow and be happy-go-lucky and peachy keen and understand it all? I doubt it. Because one thing we need to remember, there are nefarious forces that are trying to divide us so that we don't come out of this a unified force. We don't come out of this bonded to each other and understanding that this is a movement that is going to grow, and that this is that we're part of something and that we're at the beginning of it. So the choice is ours, whether we are going to allow ourselves to be divided and turned against each other, or we're going to go forward and defend our fundamental natural rights from an assault by a government that, once they've done this, there's no stopping them. And they know that. So I'm going to, if you're done, Jen, I'm going to conclude in one sentence. Okay.
Okay.
I just want to thank every single solitary one of you, even those of you who are mad at me, because I love you all. I want to thank you for your incredible dedication. I want to thank you for inspiring me when there were times I lost hope and I wanted to give up. And I want to tell you that it has been an honor and a privilege, regardless of the outcome, to have been leading this charge for this moment in time because I believe we are part of history, and we are the American resistance that stood up against this personal and intimate form of tyranny that put our kids, our rights, and indeed our future and the future of our country at risk. So I want to thank everyone for being on tonight, and I want to say God bless you and Godspeed.